video I'll discuss about the types of joint. So what is joint? Joint joint is a junction between the two. It's a junction. It's a junction between two or more bones. It's a junction between two or more bones, and it's responsible for movement. It's responsible for movement, growth, and the transmission of forces, and transmission of forces. So junction, it's a joint between two or more bones. It can be two bones or more than one bones, two or more bones, and it's responsible for movement, growth, and transmission of forces. So types of joint. Now types of joint. Joints type. On function, it is of two types. Number one, cyanoarthrosis. And diarthrosis. Cyanoarthrosis and diarthrosis. So joints is divided into two types. Number one, cyanoarthrosis, and number two, that is diarthrosis. Diarthrosis or cyanoarthrosis. So let's talk about cyanoarthrosis. Cyanoarthrosis is a solid joint, and it has no cavity. Without any cavity, it is a solid joint, and it has no cavity and no movement, or maybe slight movement here, and it's possible a slight movement is possible here, and these are further divided into all. And cyanoarthrosis is further divided into uh, two types. They are fibrous joint and cartilaginous joint. Number one, that is fibrous joint. And number two, that is cartilaginous joint. Cartilaginous joint. So cyanoarthrosis is further divided into fibrous joint and cartilaginous joint. And diarthrosis, it's also called synovial joint. So synovial joint is called diarthrosis. So fibrous joint, what is fibrous joint? Fibrous joint, like sutures. Fibrous joint, example, fibrous joint like sutures. This appears between those bones which are ossified in membrane, like joint of this curve, and then syndesmosis. Where the surface of the bones are united together, like middle radioulnar joint, then inferior tibiofibular joint, fibular joint. These are the cyanoarthrosis. Cyanodesmosis. Now the gomphosis. So gums is like root of the teeth which fit in the socket of jaw, like peg and socket joint. These are gums. Now the cartilaginous joint cartilaginous joint is further divided into primary cartilaginous and secondary cartilaginous joint. Primary and secondary, these are further divided into primary and secondary. Cartilaginous joint is further divided into primary cartilaginous joint and secondary cartilaginous joints. Primary cartilaginous, when the two bones are connected with the help of hyaline cartilage, that is called primary cartilaginous joints. When the two bones are connected with the help of hyaline cartilage, that is primary cartilaginous joints, like epiphysis and diaphysis of bones. Now the secondary cartilaginous joints, primary, secondary, now secondary cartilaginous joints. So secondary cartilaginous joint, like all the midline joints are secondary cartilaginous joints, like symphysis pubis, then intervertebral disc and symphysis pubis. These are secondary cartilaginous joints. So now we'll talk about the diarthrosis or synovial joint. So we have talked about the types of joints. On function, it has two types: synoarthrosis and diarthrosis, or cartilage or diarthrosis or synovial joint. So I have discussed this synoarthrosis. Now we'll talk about the diarthrosis or the synovial joints. Diarthrosis or synovial joint or diarthrosis. And synovial joint is permit face movement, like free movement. It's permit free movement. These are permit free movement, and it's like plain joint, hinge joint, condylar joint, and saddle joint. And it's further divided into further divided into four types, like number one, plain joint, that is uniaxial joint, plain joint, then uniaxial joint, then the biaxial joint, then the polyaxial joint. So it's further divided into plain joint, uniaxial, biaxial, and polyaxial. So plain joint, like plain joint, hinge joints, condylar joint. The biaxial joint is like hinge joint, then the pivot joint, condylar joint. These are like hinge joint, neutral joint, hinge joint, then pivot joint, then condylar joint. And the biaxial joint are like ellipsoid joint, saddle joint, biaxial joint, and saddle joint, and polyaxial joints are ball and socket joint, ball and socket joint, like this is polyaxial type of synovial joints. Ball and socket joints are polyaxial type of socket joint, synovial joint, and also it's also known as spheroidal joint, and its movement are flexion, extension, etc. And the example of ball and socket joints are hip joint, then shoulder joint, hip joint. Example of ball and socket joints are then like hip joint, then socket joint, hip joint, shoulder joint, and hip joint, shoulder joint. Hip joint and shoulder joint. So these are the example of ball and socket joint.